Welcome back. If you're a returning listener to My Solopreneur Life, and if this is your first time here, well, you're going to get a big surprise, but welcome to the show. This is actually going to be the last official episode of this season, which is the season about the realities of being a solopreneur, and which was the fourth season of this show. About a year and a half I've been doing these episodes and have really enjoyed it, but I have some news to share with you that's, to me, incredibly exciting, and I can't wait to share it with you. So that's what this episode is all about. Welcome to My Solopreneur Life. I'm Terry Pappy, your gracious host, and I am so glad you're here. I have a wonderful episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's have some real talk about what it is to be a solopreneur. I know you're like hanging on the edge of your seat, right? At least I hope you are. I am starting a new show, and that show is going to be called The Signal. And The Signal is designed for solopreneurs, leaders, thought leaders, writers. And what I'm doing is I'm focusing in on resonance and creating connection with your audience. And I'll tell you why. I've seen over the last year a lot of changes in business and entertainment and everything going on with artificial intelligence. AI. I use AI. I've done episodes on how to leverage AI and how to balance it with your own original thinking. And it's become a really powerful tool for solopreneurs to not only create really good efficiencies, but to help brainstorm and just the entire creative process. That's how I use it. So I don't want you to think that I'm anti-AI. That is not what this shift is all about. But what I'm seeing is an awareness growing in the need for human interaction, for resonance, for creating content that is based on real life experience, vulnerability, transparency, humor, and all the things that come from lived experience, not necessarily generated by AI. And I've also had a shift in my personal life that is helping me move in this new direction, which I am so grateful for. At the time that it happened, I wasn't that grateful, believe me. I was quite devastated. But I have been moving through it with grace and still am moving through it. But what it's done for me is it's shown me this new path, which is I'm getting back to writing and authoring books. And I also started a writing group, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. What I'm noticing that my clients are doing, as well as other professionals that I meet in, certain networking situations or introductions, is how they're using AI. And the funny thing is, to them, it's like a super great, like, this is great, I can use AI, I can solve all these problems. And that's fantastic. And more power to you. But what is being left behind is the customer experience, so the gap is greater. If you're creating content that's strictly output from AI, and then you have an in-person or a service-based experience, and they don't match. So in other words, AI is really good at making everything sound wonderful and blah, blah, blah. And then when the experience comes along and it's not that, there's a gap. That's one thing I've noticed, where AI generates content or automations or over-automates the customer experience, and then the customers end up getting frustrated because they feel like they're being handled and not truly served. It's becoming more and more frustrating for many people to not be able to talk to a human or to interact with someone in the way that we've kind of all grown accustomed to. We're all having to adapt to these new paradigms that are generated by AI. AI is here to stay. I think it's a great tool. I think that it's going to open up many, many wonderful things. If we are not evolving as human beings, whether it's on a spiritual level or a physical level with what we're doing with technology or just making life better for everyone on the planet, then there's stagnation, and then there's angst, and there's energy that gets built up, and people are just not happy and not satisfied. I'm a big believer in evolution, in technology, improving the lives of everyone. So I don't need to get into a big political conversation about it, because everybody has their own opinions and their own fears and their own doom and gloom or their own worries about what AI is going to evolve into and how we handle it as human beings. All you got to do is go on any social media and you can see a plethora of pros and cons around how AI is being used, how it is causing problems, how it is solving things like major healthcare things. I think that's brilliant that it's able to do so much in the area of healthcare. So let's bring it back here to me, because this is my show and the last official episode of My Solopreneur Life. The reason I started this show was because I was encountering a lot of people who were independent contractors, service providers, speakers, some type of specialist in training or whatever, but they were a one-person business owner. There are unique challenges that come along with running a business by yourself and working from home, the solitude, the isolation, having to figure out how to do everything from bookkeeping to rainmaking to serving clients. How do you balance it all? How do you deal with the stress of just the overwhelm of everything you have to do? How do you work with subcontractors? How do you do partnerships? How do you generate income, raise capital so you can actually fund some of these investments that you're making, unless you're providing a human-to-human service? So there's a lot of aspects that came into play specific to solopreneurs. And since I've been a one-person business owner since 2006, I thought it was important to have a show that spoke to that, and leveraging my experience, the things that I've learned in the area of communications, marketing, and business development, and customer experience that can help solopreneurs just have an easier go. But what I didn't expect was this big shift into writing, finding my voice, being a resource for those who are noticing the same kind of gap in the AI slop that's out there, the dissonance that's occurring in how we've over-automated and over-mechanized our communications, our world, and even the service delivery. I believe that there are going to be new cottage industries, they're already happening, popping up, that are going back to basic business where it's human to human, where things are craft made, where there's real like D-robot types of things, where things are not all generated by technology. And I love that. I think that's great. True craftsmen are a rare breed, and I hope that continues. And then again, we have the larger scope of what's available that is being improved by AI. When I talk about solopreneurs and how they're choosing to use AI, I've run into some very disappointing experiences and conversations I've had with clients and colleagues. For example, I've had one person tell me that they basically rewrote their entire website with ChatGPT. They basically said, this is what I want, this is who I am, this is my audience. They put all the right prompt in. And then, of course, ChatGPT spews out all of this very AI-sounding content. It was so disappointing to see that happen, because this particular person had a wonderful personal brand. And the way they talked about the work they did, how committed they were to their customers, that it was just, you could feel it. You could feel the brand coming through. You could feel their personality coming through. And it was like real. And now it's not. Like that person's not even in there. It was just really disappointing. I had another colleague who'd been in the business of training and improving leadership skills and things like that. And they published several books. This most recent book that they published that they were updating their website, I was asking them about content marketing and how they were handling that. And they were like, oh, we just put the book into ChatGPT and it output 100 blog posts. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a time saver, but you still have to figure out, how are you distributing the content? Are you inserting yourself into that content? And if you're teaching someone something, is it teaching it from the book with AI's flavor, or are you teaching it from the human perspective? I haven't seen the content, but I was just shocked that they were so like, oh, look at me. I just went ahead and saved myself all this time by having AI output all of this content. And I'm like, that's what's really contributing to the AI slop out there, because it's regurgitating what's already on the internet. Anyway, and it's just, I think the position I'm taking is AI is great. It's a great tool. I use it, but I use it very intentionally. And I make sure that whenever I use it and whatever I use it for, that Terry is inserted in that piece of content exponentially. So I want my DNA all over it. And typically what I do is I'll use ChatGPT or Gemini for ideation, brainstorming, making sure I'm covering all bases. That's my favorite way to use it, because at the end of the day, I still want to be the one that's writing, because I am a writer. And I want to take the time to do it because writing, the act of writing for me is very satisfying. So let me tell you about this really cool story. I live in a pretty sizable community in Southeast Florida. A lot of snowbirds, a lot of retirees, and they have this beautiful clubhouse, and they're very active in the community. So in other words, they are running events all the time. The clubhouse has all kinds of things going on, from mahjong to learning Spanish to DJ night where everybody hangs out and dances to the songs of the 60s and 70s, because it is an older kind of group. I have to laugh. I'm like, these are my people. The way this all unfolded was nothing short of God wink after God wink after God wink. And this is what I mean, just as a little sidebar. When you're on your path, when you are following your highest excitement, when you are doing what you love, everything falls into place. People show up, circumstances show up, the money shows up, the most crazy coincidences happen because you are following your path. And whenever something is difficult or challenging, or you keep running into obstacles, you're not on your path. So this experience, wait till I tell you, this is just so exciting. I like to treat myself to Starbucks every now and again. And over the years, there's one that's probably about 3 or 4 miles away. You throw a rock, you hit a Starbucks, right? I got friendly with a couple of the baristas at the window, as I go through the drive-through with the dog and everything. And there was this one barista, her name is Raven. And Raven and I somehow just, one day I was coming through and she's like, what are you working on today? Or whatever it was. She was being very friendly and they weren't too busy. And I said, oh, I'm going to be working on I can't remember if it was my podcast or writing or something like that. And come to find out that she was a writer as well. That was like a commonality. And I was like, oh my God, that's great. So we started talking over the visits through the drive-through about writing, and she was exploring a couple different things to do. But anyway, I also came to find out that she lives in my neighborhood, because she said one day, were you out walking Tiger on this street or whatever? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, well, I saw you. And I'm like, do you live in my community? And she's like, yeah, I live in Verano. So it was just kind of weird how it all happened. This is what I'm talking about, being on your path. So I said, oh my gosh, that's great. I said, listen, if you ever want to write, because I'm trying to get back into writing. I've got this itch where I really want to just return to publishing books again. And I said, if you ever want to hang out at the clubhouse and just write together, I would love to do that. So she took me up on it a couple weeks after that. And we met up at the clubhouse and just kind of sat out by the pool and we were talking, getting to know each other and stuff, and did a little bit of writing, but mostly chit chat. What was interesting was, while I was, kind of doing the drive-through, commentary with Raven, I was also looking for a writer's group. back when I lived in Orlando, and this is probably 15 years ago, and I was very active in writing and publishing books. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff. And I found this lovely writers group, and the facilitator, her name is Jamie, and there was probably, I think, 7 of us in the group, 7, 8 people, all women, and we were all pretty serious about writing. Most of us were working on some sort of book or second book or third book or whatever. It was an environment that was based on giving writing prompts to stimulate the writing muscles and forward any kind of project we were working on. And I actually got the idea for the Trojan Murders from one of her prompts. And it was just a great thing. So I remembered that and I was like, oh, I just want to get back to that. I want to, put myself back in this creative space and be with other writers, because there's a very special dynamic that happens when you're working with somebody. You're all focused on writing and you contribute to each other, you provide feedback, you get ideas, and it's just a wonderful dynamic. I loved it. But what I did was I was looking online to see if there's a writers group in my area. And I was looking pretty broadly, like I'd say good 50-mile radius. I found one that was in Port St. Lucie, but the more I investigated it, the more I realized it wasn't the right vibe. And I trust my gut on these things. And so I kind of like, no, that's not for me. And so I was a little frustrated that I couldn't find a local writers group. And so I decided to make my own. I found out that my community has this thing called resident run clubs. So a resident who lives here can actually start their own club and facilitate it. Whether it's like, I want to learn how to be better at darts, so I'm going to start a darts club. There was my neighbor started a boating club. So if you're a boating enthusiast, right? Going back to when Raven and I were sitting outside writing together, I told her about, I've decided to start my own club. And I said, when we're done here, let's go to the front desk and see how you do it. So we're done writing. We go over to the front desk and I say, I'd like to start a club. It's a writing club. So they're like, okay, great. Yeah, fill out this paperwork. And they said, you need a co-sponsor. You need another resident in the community to co-sponsor your group. And I turned to Raven and I said, would you like to co-sponsor Verano Writers? She's like, heck yeah. And so we were both amazed. I mean, I'm getting chill bumps just thinking about that day when that happened. It's like, this is what I'm talking about. It's like the universe, when you're doing the right thing, the universe just lays it out for you. And here was Raven, of all the people, my Starbucks barista that I got to know through the drive-through, is actually living in my neighborhood, also a writer, happened to be there with me the day I went up to the desk to start my club, and she co-sponsored it. And the rest is history. So I created a website for it. It's veranowriters.com, and you can go check it out. But what's great about it is it's a butts in chair experience. We meet every Monday from 9 until 10:30. The first session I did was 6 weeks in the theater. And we have this very small room that can seat maybe 40 people, and it has like a staggered seats for basically watching a movie. And they do presentations in there and such. And it's a nice little space. And so they gave that space to me for running this writers group. I did an ad, and they have a newsletter that goes out to the community. Like, these are all the resident run clubs. And there's my ad. And I was so nervous. I was so excited and so nervous. I just limited it to 10. I didn't think it was a good idea to charge for the writers. I just wanted to reduce as much friction as possible, because I had no idea if anyone in my community would be even interested in it. And so I put the website together, I built the ad, and I just kind of sat back and held my breath. And then the first newsletter went out. And of course, I told Raven about it, and she signed up. So she was included because she's part of the whole thing. I'd go in and I'd check it. And I really tried to calibrate my expectations. I was like, okay, if I get like 2 people, I'm perfectly happy, like Raven and somebody else, because I wanted to write. I wanted not just to be there in the front of the room giving people prompts and then sitting there waiting. No, I wanted to be in a space with other writers. I wanted to write as well. I wanted to read what I wrote, and I wanted to provide feedback to others and receive feedback for my work. So that's why I created my own writing group. Next thing you know, I had 4, and then I had 5, and then I had 6, and I limited it to 10. Then I had 7, then I had 8, then I had 9, then I had 10, then I had a wait list. So I had somebody on my wait list. So I actually got 11 in that first cohort of my writers group. And I was blown away at the signups. I started the first one, I think it was March 23rd was the first Monday that we did it. And I was so excited. I was all prepared. I went out and got a new journal. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you probably saw a post where I was talking about getting this big journal for my writers group and how I had so much fun coming up with prompts. And I used AI to help me brainstorm some prompts. And I came up with a really good one that was just such a great icebreaker for the first session. We would do a prompt and then we'd write for 20 minutes. Then we'd come back and do 20 minutes of feedback and do another prompt and so on. And it worked so great. The people in this group were so diverse, and most of them were recreational writers, or they had written maybe when they were younger and they wanted to get back to it. Or, like Raven, she's writing a wonderful fantasy book and she just can't seem to find the time to dedicate to it. So this was her opportunity to really start peeling back and doing that. And she had her own series of breakthroughs as well, because she had never read her work to anybody in person, like out loud. That was a big breakthrough moment for her. Everybody else was having their own experience, and it was great. I feel so lucky to have had such good success. And so I scheduled another one. So I'm currently in the second cohort, which is again 6 weeks, but I upped it to 15 people and I got 16. So the next cohort's going to start in June and it's going to go 8 weeks. It's going to be 2 hours and I've upped it to 20. I probably won't go more than 20. And the reason why I kept a certain head count was because I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to read and provide feedback. And when you have that many people, it's kind of hard to do that. Not everybody comes to every single session. Some people have prior commitments or whatever. I've already got some signups for the next one, and we're only in the 3rd week of the second cohort. That's my whole story about Verano Writers. Every Monday, I am so excited. I can't wait to show up in the theater. I can't wait to, give them their prompts. I can't wait to write for myself. And I love providing feedback. I love seeing how everyone's created this kind of really unique bond in reading what they wrote and sharing feedback and the whole experience. And I'm learning a lot about running a group. I'm so glad that I got to share that with you, because that's a big reason why I'm shifting in this new direction. One of the things that became very apparent as I started this recording was about how AI is being overused, and we are really losing our human connection. We're losing that resonance through the written word. I want to do a show that speaks to that addresses how do we close that gap between what AI is generating and what we're actually creating. The next show, The Signal, is going to be about just that. It's about finding ways to connect with your deepest voice, the way you feel about things, your vulnerabilities, your life experience, and how do you translate that and bring that out on the page, bring that out in a keynote, bring that out in a training program, bring that out in the videos that you create. If you're just avataring it, letting AI slop take the place of what's really in your heart, you are not going to connect with your audience. You are not going to resonate, and you're going to attract people that don't really care about that. So if you care about it, then you should share it. And what'll happen is the audience you'll attract is hungry for the real you. They're hungry for the person who has something to contribute, something to share. And you want to have that kind of impact on people, I would imagine. I know I do. So in this show, it's going to be for writers. It's going to be for leaders, for CEOs, for trainers, for solopreneurs, anybody who really wants to have a greater impact with their thought leadership, to create content that pierces people in the right place. It's kind of like when you are driving along and let's say you just had a big breakup and you hear that one song that comes on and you just lose it. Either you start crying or you start getting mad because it's one of those songs that definitely aligns with how you feel, and you feel heard. You feel seen, and you sing at the top of your lungs, the windows down, and you're just like rocking down the road. And that is what I'm talking about. Those songs that have those impacts. And there's nothing wrong with writing for entertainment, writing for fun, writing to make someone laugh, writing for educational purposes, for inspiration. But let me tell you what, there's so much of that stuff out there. And that's why I wanted to stop My Solopreneur Life, because it was a very practical, tactical, like here's how you should look at your communications, or here's how you should handle your personal brand. And that's all fine, but I'm kind of tired of that. And there's so much content out there. I really want to focus in on what it is to be a human being and to share your life experience. AI cannot replicate that. It can come pretty close and fake it pretty good, but I think we're going to be challenged more and more to come up with things that truly resonate, that truly have depth and impact, and feel like that person is just reaching through that page or that video and just grabbing you by the throat and saying, yes, this matters. And that's what I am focused on. So this is the last official episode of My Solopreneur Life. I probably will have a couple after this that will give you a little bit of a teaser of some of the first episodes of the new show. And you can find it at thesignalshow.com. thesignalshow.com. That's going to be the landing page for the new show. And once I get a couple of episodes recorded, then I'll do some teasers, but it'll all be on that webpage and you can go there and check it out. But if you don't hear this at the right time, or the most recent episode you hear is like after this one, I just want to make sure that I'm also sharing that with you. So that's it. I'm going to sign off, and thank you so much for staying with me. Hopefully you'll stay with me, because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to be talking about on this show. I know in my heart what I want to have impact around, but it's going to be interesting. I want to have publishers, I want to have speakers, I want to have authors as guests, and the people who are out there creating real voice and understand the distinction and talk about how they're doing it. And I'm just going to have a blast with it, because I'm back to writing. Oh, in fact, I am working on my next book. It's a nonfiction, and a lot of it is based on what I'm doing right now with writing. So I'm really excited about that too. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being part of my journey and taking this turnstile to evolve what I'm talking about and where I'm going with my latest creative adventure. So thanks for coming along. It's great to have you here.